launched off about who I am. My name's Jeff Walker. I've been teaching, well, let's start at the beginning. I started out, I was a stay-at-home dad. Many of you have heard me tell this story. I was a stay-at-home dad. This was in the 90s. I had 2 little babies. We were desperate to make some money, and I had an interest in the stock market. I had studied the stock market. I didn't have any credentials, but I started publishing a newsletter about the stock market, and that gradually grew into something. It grew through word of mouth. I didn't have a website. I couldn't even afford a website back then. And that grew through word of mouth, and I eventually did a launch. That first launch did $1,650, and I was overjoyed. I couldn't believe someone would pay me for something. And I had the most important, this is, get this, this is, just write this down. This is probably one of the most important thoughts I ever had in my life. I did a launch that did $1,650. And I thought to myself, if I did that once, I can do it again, and I can do it again. Because that first time was a real leap of faith, because I didn't know it. I'd never sold anything in my life before. I wasn't a salesperson. I wasn't a marketer. I didn't know anything about it. I stumbled into this process I'm about to teach you. But it's like, if someone paid me once, they'll pay me again. I couldn't believe someone would pay for something that I'd created. I remember that first order. I was so excited. I just about jumped and hit the ceiling. I literally did jump. It was so exciting. I saw we had someone from Switzerland that's watching. That first order I ever made, the first sale I ever made was actually a gentleman from Switzerland. I'll never forget that. It was unbelievable. But I thought, if I did that once, and I've proven that people will pay me for something, I can do it again and again and again and again. And you know what? It might even get better. And that's exactly what happened. $1,650 and $6,000 and $8,000, and then a bunch more than $34,000 in a single week. I made that sound simple. That took me a whole year to figure that out. 2 years to figure that out, to go to 34,000. Then the next launch, 106,000, and it just kept on growing and growing and growing. Eventually, in 2005, I started teaching people this process I developed. I got better and better, and that's why the launches got better. And that's what I'm about to show you, is this process I developed over time. Since 2005, I started teaching people this process we call the product launch formula. And since that time, I've had over 1 million people go through this free masterclass with me. So you're in good company. Over 1 million people have gone through this. My students have gotten over $1 billion in results. They've made over $1 billion in sales. And that's not like selling $1 billion of real estate or General Motors selling $1 billion worth of cars. These are mostly people that are working from home in tiny businesses and micro businesses and small businesses with very high profit margins. So $1 billion is absolutely insane. Now, this masterclass, product launch formula has evolved over the years. This masterclass has evolved over the years. Frankly, this is a big evolution right now, because I've now built up a team. We tend to do things in a pretty fancy manner, but because we're all in self-quarantine right now, it's a little scrappier than normal. So I beg your forgiveness if we send out normally my team and I spend 6 months probably planning our masterclass. This time we decided to do it about a week ago, and we put it together. And I was just talking to Dan before we started, and it was like, where we're at like an hour ago in terms of preparation is normally we're a week out from the launch at that point, and like now we've got an hour to go. So it's a bit scrappy, but I know we're going to deliver you huge, huge value. So yeah, this isn't my normal studio. This is a house I borrowed that just happened to be absolutely clean in terms of virus-free and had a really good internet connection that I could get to. So a little bit scrappy, but we're going to be okay. We've got this camera. We've got also a big whiteboard over there I might go to, or a flip chart over there I might go to. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about launches, and we're talking about online business. This isn't about starting a bricks and mortars business. This isn't about starting a one-on-one practice. This is about starting an online business. And an online business I love because it gives you freedom. all kinds of freedom. Freedom to work when you want, freedom to work where you want, freedom to work with who you want, and leverage. So instead of working, like you can make more money without working harder. So if you're a one-on-one practitioner and you're usually working with people, maybe you love working with people and that's great, but the only way you can increase your income is by increasing your rates. And at some point you can't increase your rates anymore. Well, when you work one-to-many like you can online, then you have leverage. So you have all this freedom, you have time freedom, you have that leverage freedom. You can make a great income online. My income is beyond anything I could have imagined when I started out, when I first started out. And you also have this freedom to, this ability to make an impact in the world. And that's been, that's why this is so fun for me. It's like, yeah, I did plan to be on the beach now, but if I can't be on the beach, rather than being self-quarantined and like watching another season of some on Netflix, I can get here and I can do my best work and I can change people's lives, and you can too. So the beautiful thing about this type of business is your ability to make impact. But the one that I think is top and front and center for us all right now is the idea of security. Security is, I think we're seeing, it's not a job. Security isn't working for a company. Security is being able to create real value in the world. And the process I'm about to show you is the way to create real value and to get paid for that value. Even if you can take what I'm about to show you, especially today, the sideways sales letter, what I'm about to show you today, you can take that and you can use it in your job to do better in your job. You can use it all kinds of ways. It's just all about building value. Now, I hope I convince you to create your own business and to go out and create something great in the world and create an impact. Because frankly, I think entrepreneurs are the future of humanity. I think that entrepreneurs are the people that are creating positive change in the world. I think they're the ones that are going to lead us out of this situation that we're in. Yes, we'll get some help from the NGOs, and we'll get some help from the government, but it's going to, make no mistake, it's going to be entrepreneurs that are leading us out of this. That's my true belief, because I think entrepreneurs are the future of humanity. Oh, future of humanity. Let me underline it. I think entrepreneurs are the future of humanity. And I think online entrepreneurs who are teaching or training are the future of education. We're seeing that right now. We're seeing education go online, even for colleges and elementary schools and high schools. It's all happening online. And it's not like it will always all be forever online, but a lot of it will stay online. That's one of the things that's happening right now. The changes that are going to happen in the world, none of us can know for sure. None of us can know exactly how this is all going to play out. But one thing is we're not going back. There will be permanent changes. And one of those permanent changes is virtual work, virtual business, and virtual education. And I'm going to show you why that plays so strongly into what we're doing right now. The internet doesn't close. The internet is open for business. And one of the things, crazy, it was like when all of this started hitting, and I understand we've got people from all over the world, and the timing of this crisis has been slightly different for different parts of the world. And the United States, where I'm at, is slightly behind, say, for example, parts of Europe. And there's parts that are a little bit behind the United States. It's just sort of moving throughout the world. But the internet, and so in March, when this hit the States, a lot of the online businesses, consumption went up. People were reading emails. People were watching videos. People were listening to podcasts. All the consumption metrics, you could watch your numbers. Email open rates were up. All those numbers were looking good, but the sales weren't coming in. But then, in the last few weeks, all of a sudden the sales started coming in. So the internet is open for business. So this is the time, if you already have a business, this is the time to lean in. This is absolutely the time to lean in. Now, a lot of folks are brand new to this. They're like, okay, Jeff, you're jumping ahead of me. What are you talking about? It's like, what does this work for? And so this, right now it's like, it's great to be in the hand sanitizer business. It's great to be in the toilet paper business, but it's also great to be in the training business, the coaching business, the online consulting business. Because what I'm about to teach you, Product Launch Formula, has worked in almost every market and every niche it's been used in. It's been tried in. And I'm going to be introducing to you, as we get through this masterclass, a lot of the people, and you're going to see the crazy markets. There are markets I've never even heard of before that after I started publishing Product Launch Formula, the reports started to come in. They came in one after another. So this has worked in just about every kind of market, every kind of niche. It's worked all over the world, typically at our events. So my event that was supposed to be next week, my Product Launch Formula Live event, we typically get people traveling to that event from 40 to 50 countries every year. Last time we did this masterclass, we had something like, I think it was over 180 countries tuned in to watch the masterclass. This works wherever you are. This works whatever language you speak. It works in knitting, in weight loss, in parenting, in history bounding, in personal development, in learning piano, in painting and drawing, in meditation, in learning language, in yoga, raw foods. No matter, it works. It absolutely works. So and every now and then you see me look down. I've got some notes here. So full disclaimer, I'm watching comments and I'm watching notes here. I have a few disclaimers. So this process, first of all, Product Launch Formula, PLF for short. Many of you have used this process. Many of you have done really, really well with this process. If you could drop a comment down if you've done a PLF launch, if you've been with me and did a PLF launch, just drop a comment. Tell us what you did. In fact, tell us what market that you did your launch in. I'm just really curious to see. But a few disclaimers. So first of all, when I say PLF, I'm talking about the process that I'm about to teach you. I'm about to teach that, the process of Product Launch Formula. I also have this thing called the Product Launch Formula Coaching Program, the PLF Coaching Program. Now, this masterclass is free. You didn't pay me anything to be here. I'm going to show you all 4 episodes, and plus I've got more bonuses I haven't even talked about, all free. Towards the end, I'm going to open up my Product Launch Formula Coaching Program, and if you would like, you can register for that. So part of this process is me just teaching my heart out and giving you as much as I can. And part of the process is, frankly, I want to enroll you in a bigger future. And the best way I know to enroll you in a bigger future is to try to enroll you in the PLF coaching program. But that's down the road. And so when I say PLF, understand that I mean the process or Product Launch Formula. PLF, Product Launch Formula, it means this process that I'm teaching you. Second disclaimer is there is work involved. There is absolutely work involved in this. This isn't get rich quick. So I'm going to show you a process, a formula. The formula works if you follow the formula, but it's not a magic button. I don't have some magic red button you can take and put on your social media profile and all of a sudden money will fly out of your computer. I'll never promise that to you. I never have promised. There's work involved, but it's a formula that's worked thousands and thousands and thousands of times. I think that's it for the disclaimer. So right now, I'm doing this. One more disclaimer. I'm going to keep this material available to you for a week. And frankly, I thought about just putting it out there and leaving it out there. But if I do that, I know what'll happen is people will be like, that's awesome. That's really cool stuff. And I'm going to get to it someday. I'm going to watch Jeff's free stuff someday. And someday doesn't cut it. It's got to be now. So I'm putting a deadline on it for you. So all of this material will be available till next Friday at midnight. The Facebook group available till next Friday, and then we'll put a hold on it. We'll stop it. I don't know what the technical term is, but you have until next Friday. Yes, there will be replays. I think you should watch me live, because there's a whole different energy when you're watching me live. You can see the comments coming in. You can see the hearts coming in. If I got any hearts out there, do I have any hearts? I'd like to see some hearts. Could I see some hearts? So be here live if you can. If not, I understand. Times are crazy. A lot of us have kids at home. I don't. My kids are out of the house now, but I know many of you have kids at home. You have disrupted schedules. I know that for some of you, this is the middle of the night. So I get it if you can't watch it live, but we'll have the recordings available for you. So what's a launch? What is a launch? Let's start there before I dive in and show you exactly how it works. What's a launch? And it's really simple. It's like a launch is when you look at the way Apple releases a product. It's not just like one day all of a sudden a product appears in the store. They have an extensive build up into it. They have they have rumors, then they have invitations to their release parties, and then they have their release party, and then everyone lines up to get their phone. When Hollywood does it, they have a trailer, start to get all the stars being interviewed on all the late night shows, and then the release. They build up the anticipation. And so when I talk about a launch, I'm talking about doing that for our kinds of businesses, for even micro businesses. For years, my business was a one-person business. Got a big team now, but for the first 10 years, it was a one-person business, yet I was still able to structure this, to build into this, to build anticipation, to get people excited, so they just can't wait to buy from you. It's like, Jeff, would you take my credit card already? I just want to buy from you. That's what I'm about to show you. And we'll be there in just a couple minutes. It's all going to make sense. You've actually seen this before out in the world. It's interesting. My wife just acted as the officiant for her sister's wedding. And her sister, Kathy, asked my wife, Mary, if she would be the officiant for her wedding. So Mary's never done this before. She's not a minister, pastor, priest, anything like that. But she said, sure, I'll do it. So and Mary's a researcher, so she's like, I got to figure out how to do this. Not so much how to get licensed or whatever, because in the state this was happening and you didn't need a license. Anyone could be an officiant, but she wanted to be a great officiant and put on a great ceremony. So what Mary did was she went and started to research it. And when she went and started to research it, she came across someone who used product launch formula that I'm about to show you that brought her right into the sale. And then she bought, and she got this great product, and she went through it, and she put on a great service. This wedding was amazing. She was an unbelievable officiant. But I'm just going to show you that this can be used in all kinds of different markets. And once I show you what it looks like, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Because all the top thought leaders, all the top experts out there, this is how they get their offers and their products out there. This is how experts become highly paid experts. So real quick, this is just a few ground rules, little housekeeping, how this works. So this masterclass, we're going to do 4 live sessions like this. This is session number 1. It'll be a mix of me teaching you live, and we'll also use some video from our last masterclass a few months ago. There will be, so the home for this is basically Facebook, and the real home for it is our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group for this pivot edition of the Launch Masterclass. In that Facebook group is where all the extra resources will be. So in there, if you go in there, there's like a little units section, and in the units section, you can download the PDF action guide that goes along with this lesson. Each lesson is going to have an action guide, plus we're going to have additional downloads. That's where we'll have additional video training there. We'll have case studies there. We'll have the replays will be there. So there's going to be all kinds of goodies. And my coaches and I will be in there answering questions for you. So if you're not already in that Facebook group, then you need to get there in the Facebook group. I'm assuming at this point my team's probably going to be dropping notes or a link so you can get to that. Or you could just search for Pivot Edition of the Launch Masterclass and you can find that group and we'll get you all hooked up. So let's get right to the sideways sales ladder. This is how I went from a launch that did $1,650 to a launch that did $6,000 to $34,000 to $106,000 to, yes, I've done launches that have done up to $5 million in a single week. But it all started with that $1,650. So how do you make that transition with the sideways sales letter? And that's what I want to show you right now. So how do you go from a stay-at-home dad and struggle to put together a launch at $1,650 up into launches that do millions of dollars? That's what we're here for. That's what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you what we call the sideways sales letter. That's the core behind all this. But first, I have to give you a little reference. So there's this thing called the sales letter. This is the old style sales letter. And so the old style sales letter is, you've probably been to one of these pages before. And no one ever says, I want to go visit a sales letter. You end up, someone sends you a link, you click on it, and first you see this page load, and there's a headline up here, and the scroll bar is like this, and it gets really small as all these pages load. And then it ends up being just this tiny little thing, and there's something for sale, and you know there's something for sale there. So what you end up doing is this is what I end up doing, what most people end up doing, is you just take that little thing with your cursor and you scroll down to the bottom to see what the price is. And then you go back up to this, and at that point you decide whether you click away from the page or maybe you go back up and you check it out. So that's the old style sales letter. Now this used to work. It used to work back in the 90s and the early 2000s. And sometimes it still works, and sometimes, frankly, I'll still use it. But it's not that effective. So there's a formula that people follow here. And the formula is you define the problem for the people visiting. So maybe it's a site about learning how to play guitar. So you define the problem as, okay, you bought a guitar, but you don't know, you bought a guitar 3 years ago, but you still can't play a song. So that's the problem you define for someone. And you're trying to sell it like a learn guitar course or membership to someone to get them to learn it. So you first define that problem, and then you agitate. You make them feel really bad about that problem. You bought that guitar, you still can't play a song. You wanted to be able to play songs, right? You wanted to be able, maybe you wanted to impress people. Maybe you thought you might be able to pick up some girls or something. And then some guy, you have a party and some guy comes to your party and he picks up your guitar and starts playing it and he gets all the girls, right? So that'd be an example of agitating, right? So you define the problem, then you agitate them, and then you solve the problem. So this is the old school sales letter. Problem, agitate, solve. Problem, agitate, solve. Define the problem, get them feeling really, really bad about their problem, and then you offer the solution, but when the solution is to actually pay you for it. Now, like I said, this used to work. There are still times where it does work, but it doesn't work nearly as effectively as what I call the sideways sales letter. And this is the sideways sales letter. So instead of, like those sales pages, they might be 10 pages long. Like if you printed them out, they'd be 10 pages or 20 pages. I saw one recently that was literally 50 pages long. But let's just make the math easier. Let's just say you have a 10-page old style, old school sales letter. You take that and you turn it sideways. So you went from length to, to vertical to sideways. And this has made all the difference. This is how you build value and deliver value and have that lead into a sale. The reason those old style sales letters don't work is there's so much noise out there on the internet. Online, there's just so much coming at people and they don't believe you. And they see just this long letter and like, why should they believe you? Well, I'm going to show you how to get them to believe. It's the sideways sales letter. So instead of 10 days of vertical, let's just make it 10 days. Instead of 10 pages long, we make it 10 days long, right? 10 days. And that's what we call your pre-launch. And in that time, you deliver some real value. So we have 3 different pieces in your pre-launch plus your open cart piece. So it's 4 pieces of what we call PLC. PLC stands for pre-launch content. Pre-launch content. So you have PLC number 1, pre-launch content number 2, pre-launch content number 3, and PLC number 4. So the way you do this is and typically these days a lot of this is done via video. It can be done via email. I love email launches. They're my favorite because they're so simple. But you deliver these value, then you make your offer. So this first one is what we call the opportunity PLC. I'm just going to say video. It's easy for me to say video. Again, it doesn't have to be video. And even if it's a video, you don't have to be on camera. You're all about the opportunity, or also a lot of people don't like that word, opportunity. I think it's a great word. But you can also think of it as a journey. So what you're doing here is you're defining the opportunity that someone actually can learn to play songs. And what it's like in your life if you can learn to play songs on your guitar, or you can learn to meditate, or you can lose weight, or you can finally get in shape, or you can have a great relationship with your parents or your spouse. You can learn to play tennis. You can learn to get your serve in. You can learn to hit a straight drive when you're golfing. You can learn to knit. And this is what your life will look like if you do that. So I personally think that one of the highest services you can do for another human being is if you show them they have the opportunity to have a better life. And at the end of the day, we are all either, we're taking away pain or we're delivering pleasure. So this first one, like I said, I think showing someone how they can have less pain or how they can enjoy their life more, whether it's by playing better tennis or meditating better or losing weight or any of carving wooden dolls, being able to grow big tomatoes, being able to eat a great diet, getting stronger, showing them they really have that opportunity to change your life. One of the greatest gifts you can give to anyone. So this one's all about, and we'll go deeper into this, but I just want to roll through this. This next one is all about transformation. So if this one is sort of about this opportunity that you can learn to play songs on the guitar, this one is about what their lives will look like once they have that transformation. Often you can use case studies really well here, testimonials. One of the things I want to emphasize is you are actually teaching. You're delivering real value. So as opposed to that vertical sales letter where it's just, here's your problem, and I want you to feel really bad about your problem, now give me money. This is like, you can have a better life. And this is actually what your life will look like when you have that better life. Now, this next one is what we call ownership. And ownership is all about getting them to really feel, to take on that change. Here, it's a change, right? Taking away, delivering pleasure, taking away pain is a change in their life. This is what their life is going to look like. This is getting them to really feel that. And again, we'll get to exactly how to work this out. But then this final one, enrollment. And enrollment is like one of my favorite words. I absolutely love that word because we are all about, or I am all about enrolling people in a better life. I'm all about enrolling them in a bigger future. I'm all about having a bigger vision of their future than they have for themselves. And then getting them, then sharing that and enrolling that in them. And so I love enrollment. Now this is actually also when you make your offer. This is what we call the open cart, or the OC, the open cart. And this is the part, this is all the pre-launch leading up to the launch, and this is when you actually start making sales. You start taking orders in the open cart. Now, there's this word out there called pitch. Like, this is where you make your pitch. I don't use that word. It's forbidden in my company to use the word pitch. We make offers, but when we make offers, what we're doing is we're trying to enroll people into a bigger future. That's what we do. Does that make sense? If you got any questions, but by the way, we're going to go deep on this. If you got any questions, type them in. So there's this other thing here we're just going to layer this in. This is going to get a little messy looking in a little bit. We got a lot to put in here. There's something I call the PS path. So I just wanted to cut in here Because, are we good? Okay, so I just wanted to cut in here, and that was the overall framework of the sideways sales letter. And I'm about to layer in the PS path, and we're about to layer in the mental triggers and add in all kinds of additional layers here. But what I wanted to point out to you right now is in the times we're in right now, there's a lot of heightened emotion right now, and everyone's glued to the news, and frankly, there's only one subject that is on people's minds right now. And so that's the environment that we are in. And if you can get out there and build value, when people are in this heightened state of emotion, this is when memories are created. This is when people lock into you and your offerings and your brand. So when you use that sideways sales letter, instead of just coming out and saying, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, that's not going to come across really, really well right now. What's going to come across right now is delivering value. And that's what the sideways sales letter is about. It's about delivering real value before you ask for the sale. And by the time you get to that enrollment, people are either in love with you or they're ready to move on. But you've built real value leading up to that. And so what I'm just trying to say is in this time, you need to lean into making real connections with people and serving them, hopefully building a community. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And that is why this formula is working really, really well right now. Whether it's to build your business, to build your following, to build a following that even if you aren't in business yet, just to start to build a following. A lot of people I know, as we get into this masterclass, a lot of people will say, I don't have a following. I don't have an email list. I don't have a social following. We'll get to that in a little bit. Actually, we'll get to that in the next lesson. But right now, people are hungry for leadership. They're hungry for value. And the sideways sales letter is the way you deliver that. And as I just mentioned, if you have any questions, type those questions in. I'm monitoring the comments, saw the questions coming in. I saw a few questions coming in. I'll be answering questions as we get deeper into the broadcast today. Okay. I didn't leave myself quite enough room to write, so hopefully you can see that. It's the PS path. What does that stand for? It's the problem solution path. So the way that this works is that, remember that problem, agitate, solve? I mean, just even saying those words, it's sort of irritating, isn't it? I mean, just to think about that, like we just gotta, like, you got this problem and now I'm gonna make you feel really bad about this problem. I'm gonna keep on jabbing you and make you feel bad. So what we do here is, this is the kinder, gentler, more effective, more profitable way, is first of all, at the beginning, we still define the problem. Because there's an opportunity to first they need a change, right? They got that guitar sitting over there collecting dust. They need to learn how to play a song, right? So they've got a problem. So you define the problem, and then, right in this very video, we solve it. Now, I mean, if you're teaching someone how to play guitar, you're not going to like fly to their house and hold their fingers down and force them to stroke or to strum the guitar. But you could give them you can give them a very simple framework for how to solve that, how to get that first song, because that's what's holding everyone back, right? That first song. And then, so you define the problem, you actually solve it, and then because every problem has inherently in every solution, there is the seeds of the next problem. You think about it. You win the lottery, are all your problems gone? No, I mean, empirically, we know they're not. We know people still have problems when they win the lottery. So you define the next problem. And when you can articulate someone's problems better than they can, then they just instantly assume that you have the solution. So this is all about articulating their problem, solving it, articulating their problem, and then you tell them, in my next video, or my next piece of pre-launch content, you don't call it pre-launch content, in my next video, my next email, I'm going to solve this for you. So problem, solution, problem. Then you solve that problem here. You'll restate the problem at the beginning, but then you solve that there. But then, what does a solution have? Every solution, inherent in every solution, is the next problem. So you define the next problem for them. So then, when are you going to solve that next problem? That's going to be here in PLC 3. So you solve that problem there. And then, of course, inherent in that problem, there's another step. There's always another step. You're moving towards mastery, moving towards just really having that change, having that transformation. There's always another problem. And then that solution right here is when you ask for the sale, when you enroll people in that bigger vision, when you get them to buy for you. That's the open cart. So that is the problem solution path. And we'll talk more about this, but I'll give you examples. We'll layer it in. But first, there's one more piece that's going to get us super exciting that really makes this work. And that's what I call the mental triggers. So this is not something that I've invented, and it's something that I discovered accidentally. In fact, number 6 here, remind me, number 6, I got to tell you, this is the secret. Remember in that clip I just showed you, I went from a launch that did $1,650 in my first launch to $6,000 in my next launch. And Dan, if I forget to mention what this is, because it was this one, that was the one thing that went from $1,650 to $6,000. That one thing right here, this one mental trigger. So by the time I get there, I'll probably forget. So Dan, you got to remind me.
I gotcha.
Got me? Okay. So the deal is, there's these things we call mental triggers, and they influence how we make decisions. They make a huge impact on the decisions that we make. And we all have these triggers, and we've had them for thousands of years. We've been developing them for thousands of years. And there's a whole bunch of them. In Product Launch Formula, in the full pro program, we go through, I don't know, 18 or 20 of these, something like that. But these are 6 really important ones. And I discovered them by trial and error. The first one is what we call authority. So if we perceive someone is an authority or has authority, we will pay more attention to them. They'll be more influential on us. And this is that whole idea of a doctor walking in a white coat. Why do they got a white coat? They don't need a white. It's like, is there anything special about you're walking in to do an exam or look at my broken toe? Is there any reason you need a white coat? No, you don't. But it's a symbol of authority. It gives them authority. Same thing with a police officer in a uniform. Same thing when you go to Amazon and you see 1,000 reviews for something. That's authority. You go to an event and someone is up on stage. They have authority because they're on stage. When you're perceived as having authority, it makes you more influential. People will pay attention to you. And you can build this, all of this, I'm going to show you how it works in the sideways sales letter. Okay, so the next one is community. Community is an interesting one, because we will all act in accordance to, if we believe we're part of a community, if we define ourselves as being part of a community, we'll act in accordance to the way we think the people in that community are supposed to act, the community norms. An example that I like to give is I grew up in Michigan, and in a suburb in Michigan. And when I grew up there, everyone had a green lawn. And I don't think everyone had a green lawn because they loved taking care of lawns. I think they had a green lawn because that's sort of what you did, was when you bought a home in this suburb, you took care of your lawn. You had this green lawn out front. All that I know is when I was 12 years old, I had to go out there twice a week and cut the grass. Wasn't my favorite thing to do, but my parents were like, go cut the grass. They were telling me to go cut the grass because they're like looking around. All the other neighbors have good, nice lawns. We got to have a nice lawn. That's when this is something that you can absolutely use in your launch. It happens all over. We all belong to different communities. Some of them are online, some of them are offline, and we act in accordance to the way we think we're supposed to act as a member of the community. Next one is anticipation we all look forward to events, weddings, births, graduations, holidays. They're big deals, and we look forward to this, like the Super Bowl. So I know we've got people from all over the world, but most people have probably heard of the Super Bowl, right? Well, all season long, there's 16 regular season games, and then some of the teams make it into the playoffs, and there's games happening every single week. Every Sunday, games Sunday, 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 all week long, get to the playoffs Sunday, 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 and then you finally end up with the final two teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl, but it's not the next week. They actually take a whole week off. It's 2 weeks in between the conference finals and the Super Bowl. Now, why is that? The big reason is to build the hype, build the anticipation. It's like all of a sudden they're interviewing every player, they're interviewing every coach. They build the anticipation for 2 weeks. Anticipation is super huge. It's a great thing in your launch. Then we have reciprocity. And this is this idea of if someone gives you something, you're going to want to give them something back. And this has been built into us. In fact, this is the basis for trade between humans. Reciprocity, if you give something to someone, they want to give something back to you. So this is that idea, there's a lot of holidays where gift giving is like a thing. Like for me and my family, we celebrate Christmas. They're a big part of Christmas is giving gifts. And if someone shows up at your front door and they've got a gift for you and you don't have a gift for them, then you feel pretty lousy. That's reciprocity at play. And it's a super powerful trigger. Like I said, I think it's the basis for all trade. I mean, if we couldn't trust that we were going to make a deal with someone and we're going to trade either some item for another item or some item for money, or some item for gold or whatever, if we didn't trust that we were going to give that back and forth, then we probably couldn't have trade. And who knows where we would be, but reciprocity makes that possible. Then we have one of my favorites is social proof. Social proof is this idea of if we see other people doing something, then we're going to be inclined to do it ourselves. So this is that whole idea. This is where the reviews really come in handy. It's like we go to Amazon and we see all these positive reviews, we might be more inclined to buy that product. If we see a bunch of lousy reviews, we don't. We look to other people for clues on how to act. A classic example that I like to use, I've seen this play out a lot in myself, is like if you're with a group of people, and we had a mastermind come in here, and we went up to Leadville, which is this town nearby, and it was time for lunch and everyone was breaking up to go to lunch in different groups. And I found myself in this group where there were some people up front that were just walking, and I assumed that everyone in the group assumed they knew where they were going. But they had absolutely no clue where they were going. They were just walking around, and at some point they turned around and said, "Hey Jeff, where's a good restaurant?" I said, "I don't know, I thought you were going to find a good restaurant." We can all fall into that of just blindly following other people. Well, it's super powerful, and you can use it in your launch. I'm going to show you how. And finally, we have scarcity. Scarcity is this idea of, and Dan, I actually got this. I remembered. Is that pretty cool?
Nice.
Cool. I'm on it.
We got a win for the day.
Win for the day. Okay, so I still might forget to talk about it. I got to define it, so I still might forget. But scarcity is this idea of if there's less of something, we inherently are super interested in it. Ferraris, diamonds, they're rare. They're scarce. They're expensive because of that rarity, because of that scarcity. Thousands of years ago, we're huddled in a cave. There's one rib bone left of that mastodon, and all of a sudden you're a lot more interested in when there was a whole carcass of that mastodon, right? Sorry for all the vegans out there. But scarcity, if there's less of something, we are inherently, it pricks up our ears and we're really interested in it. Okay, so we've got all of these, and now what do we want to do with them? They're super powerful in every area of your life. They're super powerful in business. If you want to get a date, if you want to get your kids to pay attention to you, if you want to get your community to pass a new bylaw, these things are really powerful. They're also super powerful in business. Now, the cool thing is, as opposed to that old style sales letter where it was really hard to deploy these, it's much easier in the sideways sales letter. So let's hop on back and we're going to layer these in. So first of all, first one we talked about was authority, right? So with authority, when you deliver this content, and it could be just a great email, but I love, videos work really, really well. When you just come on out and you truly give real value here, one of the things you're doing is you're establishing authority. Because you have to be an authority to be able to give that away, to even have it to give it away, to be able to present this content, this pre-launch content. There's authority. So you're building authority all the way through, so that by the time you get to open cart, you've built up massive authority. You're someone they're going to pay attention to. Next up, we have, community. So typically during one of these, here's this pre-launch content, we'll have comments down here below each one of these. And in those comments, you'll literally start to create a community. It sounds crazy, but you'll create a community in your comment section. So you got community happening all the way through. And these days now with social media, it's even easier. They have other ways for people to interact with you. So you're building community all the way through. Now, anticipation is right here as you start to move through here. Because, you define this problem, they want the solution. You've defined this problem, they want that solution. You've defined the problem, they want the solution. So you're building anticipation all the way through. Next up is reciprocity. Here, you're delivering real value. And I want to emphasize there is real value here. And if you do it right, you even build reciprocity here in the enrollment offer. Okay, have we done social proof yet? No, we haven't. Social proof comes here in all these comments. It also comes in when you can do case studies. You got all kinds of time to, instead of just throwing out a one-line testimonial or something, you can actually do case studies through here. So you can build that up. Typically, it's a PLC, and also PLC3, PLC2 and PLC3, social proof. Super, super powerful. And instead of saying, I'm so awesome, it's like you can actually share people transforming their lives. People really taking ownership over that transformation in each one of these in your case studies in social proof. Finally, we have scarcity, and scarcity starts to come in later on. So you've moved through here, and you've made it clear that you're going to build this value, but you're only building this value for so much time, and then you get to the open cart. And in the open cart, so I'm going to get real technical for you here, is that something, so this is the technical part. I like to say something bad has to happen. That's the technical part. Something bad has to happen at the end of your open cart. So this is your actual launch period. This is when you're actually making sales. And it's got a definitive beginning. That's anticipation, right? You're building anticipation there. And it's got a definitive end. And you're telling people about that end. And at the end, the bad thing that has to happen is generally falls into three categories. Either the price goes up, the offer, some of the bonuses go away, or the actual offer enrollment closes down and they can't get it anymore. And so that defined, very definitive period where they need to buy creates scarcity. And so here's the payoff from my asterisk back then, is I did that launch that did $1,650. Okay, so that was amazing, life-changing money for me. That was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I can't believe I did that. If I did it once, I can do it again, and I can do it again, I can do it again. The second one, I said, that's $6,000. So that's almost 4 times better. And the one thing I did there was I had a definitive end. The first time I launched, I didn't know that I should have a definitive end. So it was like, hey, I got this thing for you. If you want to buy it, print this form out, send me a check. The guy did from Switzerland, the guy did from Indiana, a few other people did. When you make your first sale, you'll never forget that first sale. When you make your first sale online, you'll never forget that first sale. That's why I can remember that guy sending me that check from Switzerland. It was mind-blowing. When I like literally didn't think that, I never sold a thing in my life other than 2 bags of donuts when I was a Boy Scout. And one of those was to my parents. One was to my next door neighbor. How hard is it as a Boy Scout to sell donuts, really? And from that time until this time when I was, I don't know, I was probably 35 years old or something, I never sold anything. And the idea that someone might buy something from me that I created is like unbelievable. So it blew my mind. The guy's going to send me a check from Switzerland. But $1,650, this next one, what I did was I said, you know, we've got this launch and it's open from this period to this period. And at the end, this launch was clicking along. And my email list had grown a little bit. So we were trending along. You know, we were going along. And we probably would have ended up like at $2,000, a little bit better, just a little bit better. And then on that last day, the sales just spiked, went through the roof, ended up to $6,000. And I mean, I might not be the sharpest pencil in the drawer, but I was like, I just learned something there. So I have never, since then, I have never done a launch that didn't have a deadline. I've never done a promotion that didn't have a deadline. Okay, I think we got some questions here.
Yeah, we've got a good one here from Alan DeAngelo, actually, asking about doing this for camera-shy people. Like, is this something that you need to be on video for?
The answer is absolutely not. My favorite is email because it's so much easier to just write a few emails. But video tends to be super powerful. We're in a video age, so we do video. And one of the things is writing can be hard. Like writing comes fairly easy to me, so I can write some emails. But a lot of times people, when they start to try to write, they get really kludgy and they just don't write well. They get just all caught up in their head. And in video, almost everyone can enthusiastically share the things they're excited about. So that's why video works really, really well for a lot of people. You know, I made the transition from pure email to mostly video in 2010. It's been a long time, but we had to figure all that stuff out then. Now, I will tell you, you can do video, but just do screen capture, which is, in other words, it's like, you know, there's a lot of different tools, and in fact, it's built into the Mac, it's built into Windows. You're recording your voice and your screen of your computer. And I've done some great launches that were pure screen capture videos. You don't need to be on camera. Now, like I said, a lot of people find it easier to speak, just to be enthusiastic. It's like, if you had a movie that you're really excited about and you wanted to tell your friend and convince them to go, you could probably do that. And it'd probably be easier for you to do it face-to-face or on the phone, but just do it, you know, just tell them the story of why they should go see the movie. It's the same thing for most people with their products. Now, one thing, and you're going to hear this because we got some cool case studies coming for you, but a lot of people just started out well, I'll tell you, let's not talk about other people, let's talk about me. When I first started doing video in 2010, I would literally deliver it one sentence at a time. I would have a yellow notepad down at my feet, and I would like read the sentence over a bunch of times, and I would look up and I would say the sentence. And typically it would take me about 10 or 11 takes to get that sentence right, because I didn't like the way I said the word is. Like, and this is the greatest. Oh, I really didn't like the way I said is. This is the greatest. Oh no, let's do that one again. 10 or 11 takes per sentence, and then we move on to the next sentence, and then we move to the next sentence. And my video guy at the time would just have a nightmare of stitching all that together. So none of us starts off as a natural. We all get natural. We all get a lot better at it. So you don't need to do video. If you do video, you can do screen capture. You could do email, you can do any number. There's a lot of ways to do this. But I do think that for a lot of people, video is the answer. So,
and we've got a few questions about how does this work for like a physical product or something that's not not like a make money online or not like just a educational type course.
Right, the old not make money online deal. I'm going to show you example after example after example after example in every market you can imagine. In fact, we're coming up on that in just a few minutes. But it absolutely works for physical products. In fact, we have a case study coming up of someone that uses it for pasture-raised, grass-fed beef. And it's just completely changed their business. So typically a physical product, in here you're still using information to tell the story of that product. Often it's the story of the creation, but it's also still the story of the transformation. Because, like, for example, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised beef, wild-caught salmon. That is an incredible opportunity to eat this amazing food that is nutritionally dense and great for you, and to support the farmers that are doing it. And you can tell that story all the way through here. So we've got a lot of people that do digital or physical widgets, physical products. Now, full disclaimer, most of my PLF owners are doing digital products. Or if not digital products, they're doing some type of a training or an information kind of product. It might be an offline workshop. It might be working with small groups face-to-face. So it doesn't have to be digital, but it is some type of a training type of product. About 80% of those people, or an piece of art, or a book. That's about 80% of these people here. But physical products, it's essentially the same thing, walking right on through. Okay, so I was thinking about moving on, unless you got some hot questions. You got another hot one for me?
Let's see. Well, we got some questions about if you need to be giving away like all of your content here in order to be giving away good content during your PLC.
So no, you don't. In fact, you don't want to give away everything, because then you don't have anything to sell. Right here, the beautiful thing about this enrollment, about this offer, is you're taking people up to the precipice of making a decision. That's what this whole thing is. If someone's going to change their life, if they are going to lose weight, if they're going to meet the love of their lives, if they're going to start to create this amazing meditation practice, if they're going to change their lives, it's not an easy thing to do that you're asking them to do. So you have to build them up to this precipice of making a decision. And at this point, you're like, okay, are you in or out? Are you ready to say I can and put away your story of I can't? Are you in or out? You take them to that precipice of making that decision. That's the beautiful thing. So then, like, what do they need to know to get to that precipice and be able to make that decision? Not everyone's going to buy from you. I want to be really clear. In fact, the majority don't buy from you. The majority will not buy. That's the reality of business. But you want them to be fully informed so when they get here, they can make the decision. So if you look at, like, what's the point I need to get them to be able to make the decision? And then you back that up and say, okay, what's the problem solution that leads to that point? That's what you give away. Now, this isn't about just taking a sales process, a sales letter, and splitting it up into 3 chunks. It's like if you have a long-form sales letter, a long-form sales video, you don't just split it into 3 chunks and send it out. You follow the formula. You build value. You do define the problem, and you give the solutions, and you do that all the way through. You just do it in a way that lands people so that they can make that decision when you get to open cart. Okay, so a few little details I have to take care of. First of all, lots of great questions coming in. I'm about to answer some more questions. I left, though, one of the things we did with this masterclass was I squeezed it down. There was some jump cuts in there. I just wanted to make it as tight as possible. And that was, when I decided to do this, I wanted to just get to the meat. So boom, there you go. That's why there's a few jump cuts in there in the video. So it was interesting, though, sitting here watching your comments on my iPad, and then also and just watching this. And I know, my apologies to all the sports fans. I mentioned the Super Bowl there, and I get that like all sports have been canceled, so apologies for that. And then I loved, when I talked about scarcity, and all the comments were like, toilet paper, toilet paper. Exactly, that, you guys made my point. It's like all of a sudden we've got this pandemic coming, so what do people do is they run to the store and they buy like 48 rolls of toilet paper. And it's my understanding that that phenomena mostly happened in the United States. It didn't people were a little more rational in the rest of the world, but that's scarcity in action. It's not like that there was a scarcity of toilet paper, but people thought there was going to be a scarcity of toilet paper, so they went running to the store and bought ridiculous amounts of toilet paper, and now they've got like cupboards full of toilet paper at their homes. So we had a few comments from people about their video, the stream freezing. Trust me, it's not freezing on our end, it's on your end. I don't usually like to say it's your problem, not my problem, but the reality is we've got 2,000 people that are watching this thing live right now, and they're not having problems. So if you're having problems, just hit refresh, or like reset your computer, refresh your page, because right now we haven't had any tech problems yet. Not saying we won't, but so far it's all doing well. How about some thumbs up, hands up for Dan making this whole thing happen? Usually we have a whole crew here that helps me put this on. Dan just all pulled this all together, and here we are. So yeah, ask your questions. In fact, for questions, Dan, do we have some questions?
Yeah, we do have some questions. Here's one. I've just been, just keep typing in questions. I've been grabbing them behind the scenes here for when we get to some question breaks like this. So, let's start off. We have Marvin's asking, how can I be an authority if most of the info I use comes from different books? Will I be considered a fraud or just a good student sharing what I learned and apply?
Well, it's interesting because if you've studied like personal development at all, and I've certainly studied it, many people have, there's this book called Think and Grow Rich. And that came out I'm pretty sure it came out during the Depression, like in the 1930s. So we're coming up almost 100 years. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty close. We're coming up on near 100 years since that book came out. And that book very much was the start of personal development really taking off. Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. That entire book was about him going and interviewing people and then taking the wisdom he learned from those people and writing it up into a book. So it's what we call the sleuth method. So you're like a detective and you're going out and you're learning the great lessons and then you're bringing them, you're assimilating them. So we've seen, there are people in the PLF community, and we had a question too about community. I want to talk about community a little bit. Like for instance, John Gallagher. John Gallagher is one of the famed people. He bought Product Lunch. He got my coaching program in 2006. He did it when he was his family was on food stamps. He was working at a nonprofit, not making very little money. He was going to school to be an acupuncturist, and there's very little money to go around. And so he was on food stamps. He created a board game about edible medicinal plants and herbs, brought out that board game, and did its first launch, and then it just one launch after another after another. And John is still very much part of the community. In fact, I was just trading a text message with him today. But the thing is, John, even though he's learned a lot about edible and medicinal plants and herbs, what his business really is, it's about bringing the other experts out there, interviewing those other experts, making products with those experts, and he's the person that brings them to the world. Even if you look at Tony Robbins, really, unbelievably famous in personal development, and I went through his Personal Power 2 program. I bought that in the 90s. It made a huge impact on my life, huge impact on my life. But if you really study, he's great at going and finding the greatest people and studying them and then pulling that information and presenting it. So you can add, Shelley Brander is another member, long-term member of the PLF community. In fact, I was just trading emails with Shelley and was just talking to her yesterday. She's in the knitting market and she brings the greatest knitters, and that's her product, is bringing the greatest knitters and giving them a platform. So you can absolutely do this. Now I think you should always give attribution to your sources. In fact, Shelley, it works so well in knitting, she went into barbecue. So she was in one niche and it worked really well. So she took that same model and went to barbecue. She doesn't pretend to be an expert in barbecuing. So you can absolutely do this. You can absolutely learn from others and bring it out to the world, whether you're learning from books or the thing is instead of learning from books and presenting to the world's great, but once you start doing this and once you start publishing and once you start building, do a launch or two, and get that positioning, that expert positioning. We'll talk about this coming in the upcoming lessons. But once you get to be seen as an expert, the people who wrote those books, they're going to be happy to be, for the most part, are going to be happy to be interviewed by you. So you can go from just from being the reporter that brings the books back to being the interviewer that brings those authors back to your people. So it's a tried and true business model. It works really well. Next question.
Awesome. Okay, we've gotten a bunch of variations of this one, so definitely something people are interested in. This question is from Heather. And Heather asks, what should you do for social proof with a brand new product where there's no reviews yet, no testimonials, just a brand new product?
Fantastic. So tomorrow, in the second edition of the Launch Masterclass, not the second edition, the second class of this pivot edition of the Launch Masterclass, I'm going to be teaching something called the seed launch. And the seed launch is your first launch. It's a launch you can do before you have a product. It's a launch you can do when you only have the most minimal list. In fact, if you've done a seed launch, just type it in the comments that I've done a seed launch, and if you thought it was awesome, let us know. Because the seed launch is absolutely amazing. This is when you're just starting out, how you start out. And you're going to see how you do it without any. In fact, the way I started out when I brought out the very first version of Product Launch Formula in 2005. First, I worked with a few people. Just one-on-one. I got those people results. And then I used those results to do my seed launch. And then the seed launch built my product and built all the social proof. I'm going to show you exactly how to do the seed launch in lesson 2 tomorrow. Okay, awesome. Maybe one more question, and then we've had people asking about, actually asking to see some case studies of this. So maybe we can get to that after that. Okay, this question is from Anna. And Anna asks, what if your product implies a much bigger risk for the customer and a much bigger commitment? I'm talking about selling an education program that lasts 4 years. It's not like spending money on a cool course or an item from your home, but something that can influence many aspects of your life. How do you frame the PS path? So if you're selling something that takes a great big commitment and is expensive, then you absolutely have to use this process. Because it's an exchange of value. Any sale is an exchange of value. And you have to, the bigger the price tag, the bigger the commitment, the more you have to do to build value ahead of time. And that's what the sideways sales letter does. And trust me, I mean, I've been selling, some people think the things I sell are very expensive. The reality is, it's, again, the exchange of value. So if what I'm selling can give a 10x or 100x return on investment, it's just about having that PS path actually show how that can work. And it's the same for you. If you're going to have that type of a sale, it'd be crazy to just have someone land on a pretty web page and hope they convince themselves of the value. So the PS path is basically, here's where they are right now, and here's where you want them to end up. So what's the first step for them? What's the first problem? How is their life going to change? What is the opportunity for the change? And then you show that. Now, here, let me be super, super transparent here. My intention in this next week is to build a crazy amount of value in this Launch Masterclass so that you literally have it all, that I've given you the entire process. At the end, I'm going to open up registration for my coaching program. And I hope you consider joining me in the coaching program, because everything I talk about here, we go 10 times more in depth in the coaching program. So I'm going to teach as much as I can in this week, but it's only a fraction of what I've got, what I can teach you, because there's just no way I can do it in a week. So I'm actually using the PS path right now, because the reality is, here's the first problem. If you want to have an online business and all the freedom, all the lifestyle, all the impact, and all the security that an online business would give you, you need to launch. You can't just Hope your way into this. You can't just hope that you build a product and hope people find you and hope people start following you and hope people buy your stuff. It doesn't work. You need to launch. No one starts off slowly. You just can't start off slowly. You have to engineer your launch. You need to follow this formula. So the first problem in this PS path that I'm going to take you on in the next few days, the first problem is that you need to launch. I'm giving you today the formula that has launched 1,000 businesses. That's the Sideways Sales Letter. I just taught it to you. That's the formula that you need to follow. That's the formula that every successful leader follows. Now that I've shown it to you, you're going to go out there and you're going to see it everywhere. It's going to be one of those deals like, I can't believe I didn't see this before. Everyone's using this. They're using it because they learned it from me, or they learned it from someone who learned it from me and is now teaching it. But this is the source. I mean, I try not to have too big an ego, but I'm the source. Now you're going to see it everywhere. This is the formula that everyone uses. So first problem is, if you want to have that online business and all the security, the freedom, the money, the security, then you need to launch. So I just taught you the formula. Now the thing is there's 3 main primary types of launches, and you need to know which one is right for you. And they're all right in different times for different people. And in lesson 2 coming up tomorrow, I'm going to teach you those 3 types of launches. So first problem, you need to launch. I just taught you how to launch. Second problem is you need to know which launch. I'm going to teach you that tomorrow. So that's a little on the PS path. But bottom line is, the bigger the commitment, the higher the price tag, the more you need to build value. The more value you deliver ahead of time, the higher the price that you can get, the bigger the commitment you can get. So, well, they asked about case studies. And so this is the deal, I actually have 45 case studies that I'm going to share with you during this masterclass. These are of regular people in 45 different markets. They're from all over the world. They're every age you can imagine. And they're just incredible stories. They're from people that were just starting out with nothing and desperation. There's some people that had established businesses. We had one with a nice nonprofit that was struggling. We have physical products. We have artists. We have authors. 45 of them. So we'll be releasing all of those. We'll be releasing them in the Facebook group that goes with this masterclass. So get in the Facebook group, and I'm going to be tripping them out to you over the next week. But before we do that, do we have one? Okay, this is an awesome case study. I love this one. It's from Jonathan and Amanda, and I think you're going to just absolutely love this. They started from scratch. They did a launch, and then they had a little bit of a reset, where all of a sudden, wow, we are in a situation now where we need to bring in a lot of money quickly, and I bet a lot of us are in a reset mode right now. So they reset, and you're going to see what they did. So can you go ahead and roll that, Dan? I'm here with Amanda and Jonathan Texera, and they have a really cool launch journey they want to tell you about. So Amanda, Jonathan, could you just tell us a little bit about your business?
Certainly, yeah. Well, thanks for having us. So our business, Wallet Win, helps people figure out how to use their money. So we help people get out of debt, build wealth, and change the world through generosity. We do that through just covering the basics of personal finance education. So what mom and dad should have taught them, but didn't, probably because they didn't know either.
Very cool. So I remember a couple of years ago, you were at PLF Live, our big live event, and you guys asked a question and you shared a little bit about what you've done. So could you just talk about like where you started and how you used PLF and what happened next?
Yeah, so our story really began just over 2 years ago. I found your workshop, Jeff, and we had kind of had someday we wanted to launch this crazy business thing, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of success paying off debt in our early marriage years and saving and investing, and people were kind of just seeking us out for coaching, and we started getting speaking gigs. So I saw your workshop, took it, and you taught about the seed launch. So that summer, we kind of put out on social media channels like, hey, we're gonna like test this personal finance thing. We didn't know what we were doing. All I had was what you taught in that workshop. And 80 people said that they'd be interested in beta testing this thing. And when we opened doors, just for that little tiny seed launch that summer, we had a 31% conversion and we brought in over $3,700. So we were like, okay, I think that this thing's got legs. But it was still like, we have to create it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was more just an exploration of a hobby at that point. And
so with those people though, we kind of beta tested it. We just ran it live. It was rough. And they kind of just helped us flesh the ideas out. And they knew it was going to be a lot more dust than anybody else would see, but they were helping us get it off the ground. Yeah. So fast forward a few months.
Yeah, so we went through the beta launch, we figured out what worked, what we needed to change. And then again, it was still like, we'll get to it when we have the time or whatever. And then, then PLF, like the workshop came up again.
The live
version of it. We went through it that time, and then that time we thought, we should really know what we're doing about this. So we bought product launch formula then.
Yes.
Started working through it, and then it was maybe 2 weeks into it, on a Friday afternoon, 3:15-ish, my boss walks in and says, hey, do you have a minute to talk? And it was the old, hey, that thing you're working on, we don't want to do that anymore. And because of that, we don't really need you around here anymore. So here's a box for your stuff.
Oh, no.
So, okay, well.
Well, we've got this PLF thing, and I've been working my way through the videos. And we were going to launch officially like someday when we got it all cleaned up and polished. And then we realized we've got 6 weeks of paychecks coming. And now we're good at saving. So we had personal savings, but we didn't want to have to touch it. And so we worked our tails off, strapped an iPhone to the top of a computer and started recording our videos.
Yep.
And 6 weeks later, we had a launch. And in that launch, we had about 330 people opt in. And we made 9 sales and then a couple upsells. And it brought us in about $6,000.
Yeah. So it was like, all right, I think we can do this. And then we just kept kind of just diving in full time on Wallet Win, keeping it working, serving our students, finding ways, ways to monetize and just new launches, new offers and all that. And just we were able to keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, we just couldn't believe that we literally created a business overnight out of thin air. And I remember your story, Jeff. You called yourself Mr. Mom, and it just related with me so much because I was home with the babies. We had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time. And life was pretty chaotic, but I wanted to find a way to contribute and use my skills in the world, but also stay home and raise my babies. And I wanted Jonathan to come home with me. And so the fact that in 6 weeks flat, this all came together because you gave us the skills and training. I mean, I was just in complete disbelief.
Yeah, because that was the worst part of me working. I'd leave before they wake up. I'd come home. We'd eat dinner, and then it's practically bedtime. So I hardly saw our kids, except for the weekend. And I just didn't like living like that. And so through having a course, through knowing what the heck to do to sell the thing with launches, we're able now to have that part of the life that we want, of spending time with our kids, of doing meaningful work and helping people. And we get to have it all.
Well, first of all, congratulations on that turnaround from that Friday afternoon at 3:15 p.m. and getting laid off. That's a big deal. It's a big transition. So congratulations on making that. What did that feel like to go from, wow, just to the wind getting taken out of your sails to 6 weeks later having that launch that did $6,000?
It was a heck of a feeling. I mean, it's that thing, that's that thing I always heard about or you see on TV or in a movie, the boss comes in and it's like, as it's happening, I'm thinking, okay, I have to make that phone call and tell Amanda what's going on. And it felt terrible. And then I think what we were I don't know why, I think I had my bag from when we were recording something. I had a voice recorder and a mic. So I mic'd myself on the way home that day. So it's in a podcast episode of ours, the day Jonathan lost his job. And when we listened back to it a year later, and it was incredible because it's just like, all right, this kind of sucks, but we're going to move forward, and I guess we're going full time on Wallet Win, and it's going to work, and it's going to happen because that's what's going to happen. And I think I had that confidence there because right, and you look at the future, and especially with this kind of figuring out the future, it can be a lot of just fuzzy images, a lot of fog, a lot of question marks, but we had our way forward. You know, we were still learning it going through the course, but we had that way forward of, okay, we have this thing, and we're going to do it this launch, we're going to do it this way, and we've kind of done it before, and now we're going to really do it, and why wouldn't we see the success?
Yeah. I would say if we had not enrolled in the course, Jeff, like, I think he would have just gone and gotten another job. We would have postponed things. And now knowing what we know, that would have been the worst mistake ever because you just have to get going. There's just never a perfect time to go and to launch. And so we're just really glad that we had that shove and that we had the right resource to land on to make that next pivot.
I've got so many questions. That $6,000, you guys didn't stop there, right? Where has it gone since then?
We did not stop there. We would
Couldn't
have
stop there.
That's why I like to say your first launch is never your last launch.
No. So fast forward from that very first one, you know, we tried different things. We did some webinars here and there. We did a flash sale and just kind of, you know, found different ways to monetize. And we introduced a membership into our business. So we kind of had a 1-2 punch there with the course and then this membership. But then a few months after we were at that conference, PLF Live, actually maybe just a couple of months later, we found out about a surprise adoption situation. And the price tag we were given was somewhere between, you know, $15,000 and $30,000.
And this baby's going to be born
in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were like, what? Like, okay, we want to grow our family, but we're just bringing in enough just for ourselves, which is a feat in and of itself to just go from 0 to 60 and have an income to support a family of 4.
Yeah, but we need to get up to 75.
But we need to go a little farther. So I remember writing into the PLF alumni Facebook group, and all of a sudden, these alumni were just swarming around me, and they were like, we're going to craft a game plan. We're going to figure this out. You're saying yes. We're going to, you know, they're all confident, and I remember just like shaking as I read some of these ideas they had and having some of these conversations with them. But we thought, okay, they're smarter than us. They've been around the block. We'll do what they say. And so over the next 6 weeks, baby's born in 8, right? So we had 6 weeks before we needed to open that cart. We plotted and planned this launch, and it was an imperfect launch, but we brought in over 1,100 people onto our list, and we had an 8% conversion because we told our story that we needed this money to adopt, and we were, you know, this was it. Help us. We'll help you. You help us. Let's lean on each other. We had a killer conversion rate. We brought in just enough to wire it straight to the adoption lawyer. And a couple weeks later, we welcomed our 3rd daughter, Eleanor May, into our family.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. That's amazing. Incredible story. Can you talk about, because you know this is something that holds people back, is they worry about having this list and not having a list and not having a big enough list. So can you talk just a little bit about the growth in your list and how you've grown it and how that all worked? Because you started from scratch.
Yeah. Right. We started from 0, from nothing, from our Facebook profiles. I mean, which is essentially nothing.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of, I feel like it was just this staircase. I mean, you hear about some stories where it's just this huge skyrocket, but you know, we've always had very young children. And so we put boundaries around how much we're going to work, because we can never get back the little years. So yes, we probably could have gone faster than we've gone even in the last 2 years, but we guard that and we protect that. And we're so happy that our business is allowing us to say yes to that, because that's the most important thing. But with that said, we've also grown a lot. And so, yeah, it was 80 people in the beginning, then it was 300, then that next launch, it was about 1,000. Then, you know, it just kind of kept going every few months. And I think now we're sitting at a little over 4,000 people.
Yeah, we just wrapped up a launch this week. So, I mean, the Post-it notes are people who joined us from this launch. And just that launch alone, I think, added, 2,000 people to our list.
It doubled.
And so, sure, launches are great for, selling your product and making money right then. But we've seen the benefit on building the list, because we've seen, there's people out there, they dive into the workshop, they're ready, and then they buy right then. But we've also had a lot of people we see, oh, it takes a little while. You got to warm them up a little longer. So getting them on the list, if they don't buy, that's not a loss. It's still a win for us, because as time goes on, yeah, the likelihood that they make that purchase just goes up. So we've seen that, and so we're always happy when we do a launch, when we just see that number in our email provider just go, so it's a great feeling.
That's awesome. This has been quite the journey for you, from that first launch and losing your job and just turning it around almost immediately to adopting a baby and having that constraint of 8 weeks, and boom, we're going to launch. So congratulations. And
Thank you.
it's amazing. And my last question is, where are you going now? Where do you see the business? What's it like being home, Jonathan, and being able to both be there to raise the kids? And where do you see taking the business now?
I'd say, just to start, in some ways, the most important thing, it feels amazing to be home, to see the kids, where they're just not missing me, right? Sure, you come home from work or whatever, or from a trip away or whatever, and get the running into dad hug, like that's great. But what's even better is the after lunch clean up the dishes hug, or the put you to bed every night hug, or all those things. Like that's amazing. And so, like Amanda said, we're continuing to be thankful and to structure things so that we have this time together with our family. We can eat all our meals together, kiss, say hello in the morning, kiss them goodnight at night, and do that all together. We're not just, missing. Nobody's just at work all the time. And we're growing to, now we're expanding, in some sense, like our product line, different courses we're in the midst of developing right now to just, grow our our audience, a little bit, just kind of blob out until we just start taking, just that ever expanding ooze that's just going to eat more and more of the market as we grow. Maybe you have a more succinct or less gooey way to say it.
A classy way, yeah. This fall we're actually working on a new course, and it all, all the pieces fit together. And it just feels good to know that we didn't have to master that all in the beginning. It was just the first thing. And then as you go, you can kind of add more and you get more experience. And in the beginning, we didn't know what we didn't know. So now as we come to the table with that education, we're able to kind of craft the right offer and have more confidence behind it. And then you talk about, Jeff, that launch echo. And so we've just had, just in the last 6 months, people are now approaching us looking for partnerships, looking for a joint webinar, looking for us to come speak at something. And, I just think that's all part of that launch echo, which is then going to help us on that next launch, is these other opportunities that have come to us because we had the credibility of the, kind of branding ourselves as the experts in the launch. So, yeah.
Jonathan and Amanda, thank you so much. It's been great to hear of your progress. Congratulations on so many big milestones. Congratulations on your family, on your adoption. Thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was our pleasure.
Was that an amazing story or what? I love Jonathan and Amanda. I want to step over here to the whiteboard where I took a couple notes as I was sitting here listening to this. So we good, Dan? Boom, big move over to our flip chart. How about that? Is that a fancy set or what? People were asking about our fancy set, and it's like actually we used a green screen, if you guys know what that was, to simulate the kitchen. Not really, that's a joke. Okay, so Jonathan lost his job. Talk about a pivot. The Friday afternoon, I've had one of those Friday afternoons. He talked about having to make that phone call. They went from 6 weeks, and what I think Amanda said is they created an overnight business. They started with no list whatsoever. By the end of that launch, they had 330 people. So they had no list. They had some friends on Facebook, and that was it. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, this list, it's a big question, and I get it. It's a great question. What you're going to find out as you see these case studies, and I show you how the Circle of Awesome works, and I show you how the seed launch works, you're going to see how you actually can build a list. And basically, it's by sharing. great content. So I'll tell you right now, if you look, you can see how many people are in this Facebook group for this launch. And you can see how many people are watching the video. And they're watching in a few different places. So whatever number you're seeing, there's a lot more. Well, a lot of that is because of the word of mouth. By and as this video gets shared, we build more and more, a bigger and bigger following. And that's exactly what they did. They just did it starting from 0. And they built up to 330. And he said, boy, we would have just gotten another job. Now, I actually didn't write down, and I forget how much they said that launch made. It's over in my journal over there, but I didn't write it down here. But what was it? Someone can help me out. You can type in the comments what they made in their first launch. But it was substantial. It was, to go in 6 weeks from, hey, you don't have a job anymore, it's time to pivot, to all of a sudden, boom, doing a launch, absolutely amazing. Now, the second time, all of a sudden, another pivot, someone calls up, say, hey, we're going to have a baby for you in 8 weeks. But adoptions are expensive. I don't know if I didn't know that until I got into this business and people started sharing. But this adoption is going to cost you $20,000 or $30,000, and they didn't have that sitting around. So they did a launch in 8 weeks. I love this. They freely admitted this is an imperfect launch. It's always imperfect. I know many of us are recovering perfectionists, including I can go there myself. I absolutely can go there myself. But you have to get over it. You have to get over it. So they said, we only have 8 weeks, so it's going to be imperfect. But you know what? When you're upfront about it being imperfect, and I told you today we were going to be imperfect. This is going to be, I'm just doing this master class we're putting together in a week's time that normally takes us months. And it looks a little, this isn't the greatest looking shot. It's not beautiful, not at least by our standards. But we're here with you. And you know what? People will forgive you. That's the world we live in. People don't want perfection right now. They want connection. If you're going to write something down, write that down. This is a writer downer. They don't want perfection. They want connection. Connection will win the day. If you watch what Jimmy Fallon, for those of you here in the States, you watch or on YouTube, what Jimmy Fallon's doing right now, he's creating shows where his wife's shooting the show and his little kids are creating the graphics for his show. And instead of being the late night, whatever show he does, was it Tonight Show, I think? Shows you how much late night TV I watch. I don't know what show he's on. But I've been watching him now that he's on YouTube and now that he's doing these super authentic, but just imperfect. I love watching him now. And so don't let the technology get in your way. We could be doing this from our phone. I could be doing this from my phone. And if you are delivering the material, delivering the content, and making the connection, then that's all you need. You don't need fancy cameras. You don't need a fancy website. You just need to show up and connect. And that will win the day now more than ever. Now in this crisis more than ever. So they were imperfect. They leaned, Amanda and Jonathan leaned on the PLF community. One of the things I'm most proud of is our PLF community is absolutely amazing. We've had a few questions about community and how, what does that mean and what's it like and how does that work? Because that's one of those mental triggers. Well, if you've watched the comments on this stream, you've seen the community. You've seen the people that have been in my world for years and years. A lot of those people that are making comments, they started off as strangers to me years ago. Then I shared content with them, and we've just developed this relationship. So I see them. I see Irina. I see Julie. I see Tembi. I see Stacy. I see Mary Barbera. All these people in the comments, they're part of our community. And face it, a lot of times when you're in a stream, you can see those like the lowest common denominator of humanity in some of the comments you see in a typical stream, but you're not seeing that in my community, right? Because that's the community we have in the PLF world. And I'm super, super proud of it. So Amanda and Jonathan leaned on the community. The community helped them plan this baby launch. They added 1,100 people to their list. Again, deliver value, create connection in your pre-launch, and you actually will build your list. And if you noticed, each time, each launch, they put them from 0 to 330, they added 1,100 people here. I missed some of what they said this time around, but each launch, they're adding people. And then finally, we're going to talk about that launch echo in one of the upcoming lessons, but basically, in addition to the sales, in addition to the list build, when you do one of these launches and create value and create connection, then all kinds of other good things happen. Like Amanda said, all of a sudden people wanted to partner with them, they wanted to promote for them. And there are, the dollars that you make and the sales you make is just one of the benefits of doing one of these launches. There's all these other benefits that will accrue, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. I think it's going to be the third lesson when I'm going to get to that. Okay, Dan, I think we're going to head over there, take 2 questions. So one thing I want to mention, I know a few people have asked about when we're going to wrap this. We're going to wrap this up. It'll be in about another 20 minutes-ish or so is when we'll officially wrap it. I'll stick around longer and answer some extra questions. But before I think, in fact, let's just roll the next case study right now. We'll roll that, and then we'll be wrapping in about 20 minutes. And then, like I said, officially wrap, but I'll stick around for some extra questions because we're getting some great questions. I'm here with Gabriela Pereira, and she has a fantastic story of her journey through the product launch formula. And she's done a number of launches. She's done all different types of launches, and she's in a really cool market. Welcome, Gabriela. And could you just tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. I'm so excited to be here, Jeff. So my business is DIY MFA, which stands for Do It Yourself Master of Fine Arts. Basically, I help writers get the knowledge without the college. Essentially, I've recreated the Master of Fine Arts experience and done it online in a format that people can do no matter where they live or what their time constraints are, et cetera. So when this idea started, which was back in originally 2010, so it's been a long time, it was just like, I had no idea what even to do in terms of starting a business. And then I slowly started learning about launches and courses, and I'll admit, it was really, really overwhelming. And I saw a lot of the bigwigs, like all the people with the big splashy launches, and I thought, I'm gonna do that too, and I did it all wrong. And then I took PLF and I was like, oh, there's a method to it. And so when I started doing PLF, I took the class in 2017. And after that, the first time out, I followed it to the letter. I was like, I'm a rule breaker at heart. So like the fact that I followed it to the letter was already a really big stretch for me. But I was like, okay, Jeff's kind of got this dialed in. If he knows what he's doing, like, let me just at least follow the rules one time and then see what happens. So I did, and it was insane. I mean, up until that point, I had been kind of fudging it, doing like seed launches, and they weren't even really seed launches, like they were sort of like micro seed launches, and I was maybe getting about $5,000 per launch in total revenue. And then my goal with the first PLF style launch was to just break the 5-figure mark. I was like, I just want to do that with one launch in terms of revenue. And we blew past it. We got almost to about 15,000 in that first launch. And that was when I was like, okay, this works. And so that's when I started doubling down and just like launching the heck out of everything I do. So yay, I love launching now.
And you've done a bunch of them, right? You've done seed launch, you've done the whole gamut.
I did. And so I'm kind of a nerd. I like to do things very scientifically. So last year was my year of launches, and I decided like 2018, I dubbed it the year of suck because I knew that it was going to be the most painful year of my career, but I was going to launch this one course again and again and again and again. I think I launched it 5 times. And I launched a couple of other things as well in the midst to like test a few things out. But my end game with that year was I knew that by the end of 2018, I would have our launch systems dialed in. And that by the end of 2018, my goal wasn't so much revenue as it was having a system, having a plan, and then being able to point to it and say, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like, I know what launches look like in my ecosystem. And so that's what happened. And so we started with smaller internal launches, then we added one affiliate. Then I went to PLF Live and I got some great advice about adding affiliates and JV launches, and we got some really big affiliates who came in. And then it was like the minute we had JV partners, it was just like, which like the circle of awesome, it is for real. Like that, I didn't believe in it. I'll be honest, I didn't really believe that it was possible. And then I did the launch and I was like, oh yeah, that's what he's talking about. So there you go.
So I like to say a joint venture launch is, as to an internal launch or a seed launch, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. So was that like, what were your results like in the JV launch compared to
So the first PLF style affiliate launch that we did, so like after, we had this first like 5-figure launch, and then we kind of stayed at that like between 10 and 15K in our launches. And then we did our first JV launch, and right out of the gate, it was like over 35,000. Now, we have a very tough market. It is I had grand ambitions. I was like, I want my first 6-figure launch. And I realize now that I need to temper my expectations. Our market is a difficult one to break that 6-figure ceiling. But I am absolutely confident now that I've like more than tripled our results with an internal to affiliate launch, that like now I can certainly, I know I can hit the 6-figure mark. It's just a matter of time.
Cool. So you've been through the whole gamut, from the seed launch to the internal launch to the JV launch. And what, like flashing back to that seed launch, because that's one, I teach that, and I think it's amazing. And a lot of people they want to jump right past it. They think, okay, yeah, that's just for it's beginners or whatever. Can you speak a little bit to the seed launch and what you learned? What
I did was I knew that I wanted a course with a certain number of modules, and I knew that I wanted to get feedback on those modules. And I'd taken other courses online, I'd seen online courses, so I kind of knew what a module looked like. And I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to build that and put out a module a week. But I figured a module a month, I could probably swing that. So I told my C-Launch people, like, I'm going to do it 1 module a month. It was super scrappy. We didn't have a fancy pants membership site where people logged in. It was literally a segment of my list. I uploaded stuff to Dropbox, and I had the videos up there, and I had the worksheets up there, and then I just sent them a link. And that was our seed launch. And the understanding, what I told them when I created the seed launch, don't mind my office cat, was that they would, when we did create a beautiful membership site, which now we have, that they would then obviously get comped in. And of course they got a very low, like a very early bird, awesome rate for being part of the seed launch. So in that case, it was sort of like the seed launch concept that you teach in the course. I just paced it a little bit differently. But yeah, it was awesome. Like the thing with the seed launch that I didn't realize when I first did it is that it's not about the revenue and it's not about the course. It's about building the product. Like that is all I needed to do, was make enough to actually get paid to build this thing. Sorry, my cat is driving me nuts.
And so one of the things you mentioned to me earlier is that one of the reasons you decided you had to do an online business was the diagnosis you got. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did not expect to go into online business ever. Like, I thought that I was going to be a toy designer. That was my goal. I did all of the courses that I needed to take in college and grad school. I got a master's in psychology. I went on and studied design. I was on the track to be like top designer or product developer, whatever, in a toy company. That's what I wanted to do. And then I had been seeing things in my health throughout the years, like ever since I was a teenager, but it really hit home after grad school, my first grad school, not the MFA, where I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it hit home. Like it was rough. I mean, it was one of those things where I realized like I have to reset and reconfigure how I think of my entire identity, because all of a sudden my brain, which I thought was like one of my assets, is also the thing that's kind of undercutting me. The bigger thing was when in 2006, I was working at a toy company. I was really doing well. I'd just gotten a promotion. And then I ended up in the emergency room because of the bipolar. And I realized at that point, it was one of those like, moments where, like in the book where the people are just sort of stealing themselves for that big decision. That was like that turning point moment in my life where I realized like, yes, I could do an office job and like potentially not survive. Like this was bad. It could be really bad. Or I could reset my life and find some other way of existing that wasn't in the plan, but that would be more compatible with my health, that would allow me to be able to, function. And so having an online business, it was not expected, but it's been a game changer. I mean, I like to say I lost my dream job because of my mental health, and in the process built a career of a lifetime that I never would have dreamed of. Having an online business and having launches as a way to create a structure around that business allows me to have the flexibility so that if I have an off day or if I have an off week or an off month, I can do that. I can, I can be sick for a week if I need to, and it's not going to make or break the business. It also allows me to be sort of creatively fulfilled in a way that I think, let's face it, I don't really play by rules. So like, who was I kidding? I wouldn't have been. My husband shakes his head because he's like, Gabriella, you have problems with authority. You never would have survived in a normal work environment. But yeah, being in an online business, it allows me to sort of flex those creative muscles and also, do the work that I love without feeling like I'm held back by this thing.
It's pretty amazing to think that you all of a sudden, you land in the hospital. It is a moment where you have to steel yourself to make this decision that you don't want to make, that you have to leave this dream job, and now you find yourself in a dream career, it seems like, where you get to work with people and help people. And
there's definitely a sense of like in the moment, I'll be honest, like when you're in that moment, you don't know that it's going to turn out okay. It feels like a death sentence. It feels like the end of your life because you don't have the perspective of having gone through it and having rebuilt your life from scratch. having to reconfigure my life around around bipolar disorder has been uprooting everything. Like even having a family has been something that I've had to rethink what that looks like because it's different when you have a mental illness. So yeah, it's funny. Back then, I had no idea that this was possible, and I'm just tremendously grateful that it is.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Way to just take that and work with it and turn it around and make it work for you. Amazing.
I like to think of mental illness, and this is why it's a topic that's so, I kept it hidden for a long time. And then a couple of years ago, I started sharing it more openly. And I think of it as in business, we have constraints that we deal with all the time. We have budgets, we have timelines. These are all constraints on our business. Well, I just happen to have one other constraint. It's not more or less or better or worse. It's just different. And there are other people who have different constraints in their businesses. And so thinking of it in that way allows me to treat it like a problem that can be solved as opposed to a thing that harms me or hurts me or holds me back. One of the things that frustrates me a lot with how people talk about mental illness is this idea that there's causality, that somehow mental illness could hold you back or help you. Oh, you're more creative because you have this, or you can't achieve this because, and that just gives the mental illness power. Whereas if we just think of it as a constraint, just like time or money, then it's just another thing that we can problem solve.
So final question, and amen to that. I love that approach, because we all have gifts, and we all have challenges, and certainly everyone watching this, they have their own story of why they can or why they can't. And if you let that story control you, then you're not going to get where you want to go. So one final question: could you just talk a little bit about some of the people you've worked with, some of the people you've helped, some of your clients, some of your students, and the impact you've made on them?
So I actually just had a student of mine emailed me about a month ago saying she got her first book deal. Like, yay, that's huge. I've had clients get multiple book deals with big publishing houses. But what I love is seeing, like, when I get to see writers achieve more than I thought was possible for me, like, to me, that's what warms my heart the most. Like, when I see them winning awards. One of my students just won this major award from one of the big literary magazines, the Ellery Queen mystery magazine. She got nominated for and won this award, and it was just like so awesome, because I was, this is this person I worked with when she started, and now even though I can't take credit for that because she did that on her own, but to know that I was a little piece of that journey is just, it takes my breath away.
That's amazing. But congratulations. That's would feel absolutely epically awesome, just like it feels great to hear you tell me about your success. So congratulations. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so great to talk to you.
I'm just sitting here watching that and saying, man, Gabrielle she is so amazing. I love the way she talked about her challenge, about her pivot, about her reset. Her constraint. I love that. So let's just go over to the board here. And so first of all, sorry for my penmanship. It's usually neater, but I've got constraints. It's a little tighter than normal. $15,000 for their first launch. Amazing. So she's like, okay, this works. So she leaned into it, did 5 launches. She said relaunched, I think, 5 times in a row in 1 year. A lot of people say, how often can you launch something? I think typical, there is no typical, but typical, I think 3 or 4 times a year. She really pushed it. And you know what? Remember, I said there's no easy button. I am giving you the proven formula. This formula works if you work it, but this is not just here's a button, here's a button, here's the easy button to put on your website. No. I remember one time I climbed the highest peak in the United States, which is Mount Whitney in California. And it's like an 8-hour hike up. It was a long hike, or it might have been 8 hours round. It was a long hike. It was very long. We started in the dark, ended in the dark, went all the way up to the top, and there was this shelter where you could get a shelter, this little tiny hut, and then there was someone had taken this thing, it literally said the easy button. It was a red button, and they left it there. It was a joke. There was no easy button to get up to the mountain. There's no easy button in life to have great success, but I'm giving you the proven formula. So she worked it and worked hard, 5 launches in a year, and she truly figured it out. She came out to our event, PLF Live. She then met a bunch of people who would be affiliates. It's what we call a JV launch. We'll teach you about the JV launch in lesson 2 tomorrow. Be sure to be there with me. And she tripled her results with a JV launch. Now, a lot of people are like, that sounds amazing. I just want to jump right into JV launch. Tomorrow, I'm going to walk through how these different launches fit together, why sometimes you might start with the JV launch, but most of the times you start with the seed launch. She talked about the Circle of Awesome. We'll cover that tomorrow. The Circle of Awesome is awesome. And she said, I doubted it. I didn't believe it, but it worked out. Okay, talk about a reset. She's on the path where she thought she was on her dream career, dream job, dream path. She worked so long. She went to grad school. She did all this studying. And all of a sudden, you land in the hospital with a diagnosis of bipolar. That is a serious reset. And like someone mentioned in the comments, it's not unlike the reset a lot of us are having right now. All of us are having a reset right now. But I'll tell you what, a diagnosis like that that's a big one. That's a big one. And I just love the way Gabrielle talked about it. It's like, it's just, I've got another constraint, and I can't have this career that I spent all these years building for. I'm going to build another career, and I'm going to help people become artists, become authors. And I just love it. The do-it-yourself Master of Fine Arts. Absolutely amazing. And then did you catch how she did her seed launch? A lot of questions coming in about technology. In fact, lots of great questions, period. So thank you for those questions. Thank you for your comments. Those things are going to feed me, because I'm sitting here for a couple hours with you trying to bring as much energy as I can. I'm naturally an introvert, so this is like I just try to pull it out from me, bring as much energy as I can, and those comments and questions really help. And sometimes, I won't get to all the questions here, but I'm going to get to a lot of the questions as we go through this masterclass, and I'll probably do some extra sessions or some extra videos or some extra lives and answer even more questions. And then we've got this FAQ that my team and I have been working on. I think there's almost 50 questions we've answered in that FAQ. So we're going to answer your questions. But a lot of people are asking about technology, and there's lots of different ways to do technology. But she just used Dropbox. So if you've used Dropbox, or if you've used, the Apple Drive or the Microsoft, whatever their drive is called, and she just loaded her lessons up into Dropbox, it's like, if that's the bare minimum. In fact, I tell you what, the bare minimum is use Facebook like I'm using right now. We're a little fancier. We got a couple different cameras. We got some lights. I got Dan here switching back and forth. But the reality is, I could be doing this with my webcam. I could be doing this right now with the webcam, and we're loading up all our material into Facebook on the Facebook group and the units. And so in other words, if you can use the very bare minimum of Facebook, you could do all of this within Facebook. It could be that simple for you. And then all you need is like an order page. It'd be Facebook and an order page. And you can use tools like Samcart and others to put together an order page for nothing. So we'll talk a little bit more about technology, but technology and the worry of technology is a story. It's just a story that you're telling yourself to hold yourself back. Sorry, I just said it real bluntly there. If you let technology or the fear of technology hold you back, then it's just a story you're telling yourself. And how about this is a better story? This is just, Gabrielle said, this is just a constraint. This bipolar is just a constraint. And I'm going to deal with that constraint like I deal with every other constraint. We all have constraints. I've got plenty of constraints. We all have constraints. So she's like, I'm just going to deal with it. And if technology feels like, if that's holding you back, that's just your story that's holding you back. If the list is holding you back, remember 0 to 330 with their first launch that did what? $6,000? The list is just your story. If it's COVID is holding me back, we asked that question, what's holding you back when you join the Facebook group? And a lot of people said this, that's a great feedback. And when I say it's a story, I'm not dismissing it. Because for us to deal with those stories that holds us back is a big deal. But that's why I'm here with you 4 days to try to break through that. Actually, more than 4 days. 4 days is just the start of it. Is to try to get you to break through that story. Because we all have those stories that hold us back. We all do. And I've been in this business for 25 years. I started out as a stay-at-home dad. I had nothing going on for me. I hadn't made $1 in 8 years. I was home with 2 babies. I'd committed just absolute career suicide. I destroyed my career when I left it to be home with the kids. We had almost no money whatsoever. I had all kinds of stories, but that first launch helped me break through some of those stories. And the second launch helped me break through more. And I see the same thing in my clients. So technology can be as simple as you want, or it can be as complicated and fancy. We've gotten more fancy over the years, but the first video I did was like me holding the camera out and doing a selfie. It can be as simple as you want. It could be a webcam doing a live onto Facebook that you could be doing 10 minutes from now. That could be the start of it. Okay, let's head over and take a few more questions. And then lots of folks asking about how the timing of this. My goal is to get out in 2 hours. We're a little over 2 hours here right now. With your permission, I'm just going to take a few more questions and then we're going to wrap it up. Is that okay? If it's cool with you guys, give me a thumbs up. If not, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, so we've got a lot of awesome questions. Okay, so here's one that I like. We've gotten a bunch of questions about people who are pivoting right now. They're looking to do something a little different. So here's one from Jenica. Jenica is trying to transfer a physical service into a digital business, trying to totally change things up.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. It will vary, but I mean, it's like Dan, you were just telling me, like Dan, you've joined a gym, whatever, 3 months ago, and you've really been getting into the gym, and you've been going there and working out, and they give you meal plans, and you've really been loving that, and you're paying on a monthly basis for that. So that's a physical coaching type of thing. Well, what did they do? Well, they're streaming their workouts now. They're streaming their workouts, and they loaned you all the gear you needed. So you can absolutely do this. We've heard of people streaming funerals. So streaming streaming weddings. Susan Garrett, longtime member, very, very long-time member of the PLF community. She's a dog trainer, and a spectacular dog trainer at that. You would think, well, she used to go out and give seminars, or she used to work with one-on-one, and she worked with small groups, and she would travel all over the world and do these small events, 20, 30 people events. Well, now all of her training is online. So most physical services, you can figure out a way to take it online. One of the paths in this business that is the well-worn path is working one-on-one with people, maybe physically, moving that to one-on-one virtually, moving that to small groups, and then moving it to a training product. And each step you get more leverage. You go from one-on-one to a small group to one to many, and that's how you build leverage, and that's how you impact and help more people.
Awesome. Okay, we've got a question from Tomer. And Tomer is wondering, how do you start growing a list? Said he's tried asking his friends on Facebook, and that doesn't really seem to work too well. How do I find the people who are really interested to sign up for my list?
Yeah, well, the last part of that question is the most important. It's like anytime you're building a following or a list, it's about finding your tribe. So like if I went to like actually I think my dad's watching the stream. I saw that happening. But in general, my parents are not my perfect ideal audience for teaching my mom turned 90 a few days ago, and my dad's about to turn 90. They're not about to jump into building an online business. Not to discriminate. I'm sure we've got 90-year-olds out there about to crush it. But in general, I think my parents are not watching it because they want to build a business. So you want to focus. It's sort of like if I went to my wife and I'm like, hey, check out my product about let's say skiing double black diamond runs, which is something that I do every now and then. She likes to ski, but not that kind of skiing. And so she's not my target market. So I'm fumbling here for examples, but you get what I'm talking about. It's reaching your people, the people that are interested in what you have, what you want. And that's not necessarily going to be your friends on Facebook. It's not necessarily going to be your family. So the way you start building a list, there's two ways. There's more than two ways, but the two ways that I've always focused on is by sharing great content for the people that want to follow you. And we go into depth in this in PLF. There's lots of ways to get yourself in front of your people. And when I say your people, I mean your ideal folks that you want to work with. My ideal folks are people that want to have an online business, that either are just starting out or have an online business and want to grow it, or they're artists or authors, or they're practitioners at home. They're working one-on-one with people, or they're just starting out and they want to have an online business. Those are my people. So when I publish the right material for them, it ends up getting shared. And if you go and share it in the right places, you'll draw people to you. And that's what we talked about for both of these first two case studies. The other way is you build an offer, and then you can use paid traffic to drive people into that offer. And if you're making enough money from that offer, from that launch, to pay for the ads, now you're building your list for free. Usually it's a combination of those two. Usually it's that content that builds your tribe first, that helps you build your offer with your seed launch, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. And then you build out that offer, and once you get the offer built and it's converting, that launch is converting, then you can go to paid traffic. Paid traffic means ads. Typically for most of it could be on Facebook, it could be on Instagram. Those are the two big ones right now for most of our businesses. And now you're driving people in, and once you start driving people in for less than you make in sales, now you have a machine that can really grow quickly.
Awesome. Okay, so we've gotten a lot of questions about physical products. And does this work for physical products? Does this only work for information products? How would you approach this if you had a physical product? So maybe I figured we just talk about physical products for a moment.
We have this amazing case study I'm going to show you with Blaine. I think we'll probably show it in the master class tomorrow in lesson number 2. Absolutely amazing, where he's selling grass-fed, pasture-raised beef. He also sells wild-caught salmon. It's amazing case study. Basically, he tells the story of the product through his pre-launch. And whatever product you're selling, there's probably a story behind it. Now, if you're just running a pure e-commerce business and you got thousands and thousands of SKUs in your store, then you pick out 1 or 2 products and you tell the story, and you offer some type of a special deal, often a combination deal to bring your people to the e-com store, and then hopefully you sell a bunch more stuff because you're drawing people back to your e-com store. Now, if it's more of a one-off thing like what Blaine's doing, because he's got this amazing farm that him and his, I think, 6 brothers are working this farm, he tells the story of working that farm and then takes people through the PS path and just has completely transformed his business. So we've got that case study. And I forget we've got other physical product case studies for you. But it's basically the same PS path, but it's telling the story. And for artists, it's generally telling the story of your artwork. We'll have a case study with Mary Gilkerson, who has used it to sell paintings, fine, high-priced paintings. Her lowest priced paintings are at several $100s, and her higher priced paintings are many thousands of dollars. And she's just absolutely crushed it with her launches by telling the story of the art and telling the story of the making of the art. So how about we take a couple more questions and then we wrap it up?
Yeah, and actually, real quick, while we're on the subject of does it work for this, how about authors? What if you have a book?
It's the same thing with it. Absolutely works for authors. Now, if you look at any book that's being launched right now, especially nonfiction books, they're all using a variation of product launch formula. And I used it for my book. If you just drop a book out into the world, then you're not going to sell very many copies. You have to build the value, and you have to tell the story and lead into it. It just works. It's just a straight up PLF. It's a straight up sideways sales letter that walks into your book and then gets your book sold, and then this is the important thing, is it gets your book read. And the way you have long-term success with a book is getting your book read. So you got to think about your launch, not just of how many sales it's going to make, but how many people it's going to get so excited that when you get your book, you'll actually read it. And then once it gets read, then it gets shared. So this is a long-term play to have a long-term success with a book. The other thing with a book, now if you've been working on a book and you think, I got this book almost done, I'm going to release it, whether with a publisher or self-published, and it's going to change your life. I don't want to break your heart, but it's not going to change your life financially. Even if you sell 10,000 copies of the book, you're not going to make very much money if you've done the math. And very, very few books sell 10,000 copies. But if your book ends up bringing people into your world and getting them to follow you and getting them to join your list, then you follow up with some type of an online course or a training. That's where you'll make 10 times the money that you will make on a book. So unless you're J.K. Rowling or someone like that, you're not going to make much money with a book. And I don't, maybe you're like, my book needs to be out there. I just want to change people's lives. I want to help people. But the reality is you need to bring in some money because you put a lot of time in that book. So what happens with a book that you need to do is follow up with a course or a training, and then you're going to make a lot more money.
Awesome. Okay, so we're getting a bunch of questions about like pricing and such things during this crazy time. Getting a lot of people asking, is it something where you should offer discounts, or you should reduce the price of your item? And we also have questions about if people are going to buy like higher priced luxury type items, like say art, things that aren't just like a bare necessity.
Yeah. So great question. So first of all, I think when you follow this process, you're building a huge amount of value. So the way I approach it is, in my master class, I want the master class to be the second best training in the world for how to launch your online business service product. I want it to be just amazing, an incredible experience, the second best training in the world. The best is if I get people to upgrade into my product launch formula coaching program. So here's the coaching program, best training in the world. It's just awesome. But I want to deliver so much value in this free class that people could just take this and go with it. Second best training in the world. And that's free. So it's hard to beat free as a price. I think that you should deliver great value in the world, but the reality is we're in business. I have costs. I have 30 people on my team. You don't have to have 30 people. For the first 10 years, I had 0 people on my team. But now I have 30 people on my team. They've got a lot of kids. I'm supporting 30 families. Those families are dependent on their jobs. I mean, if I am not asking for the sale, then I'm not serving my people, because I'm not going to be able to deliver the experience. I'm not going to be able to have my team have jobs, feed their families. But you know what? That team allows me to deliver at so much higher value. That's the way business works. That's just the way business works. And you know what? These days, so many people are struggling, and the economy is struggling, and it's going to continue to struggle. And business needs to work right now. Everyone knows that business needs to work. I mean, wouldn't it be better if all those restaurants downtown were open? Wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be better if all the stores were open and those people had jobs? We all know that's how the economy works. And you are no different. As long as you deliver massive value, then making a sale is just a value exchange. I'm never a fan of dropping prices. I never discount prices. I just increase the value of what I deliver. And I increase the value of the free stuff that I give. In this case, the Launch Masterclass. Now, to the question of whether people will buy art now, Mary Gilkerson, I mentioned her earlier, she's the artist. She just did a launch, and she just did really well. People still have money. They absolutely have money. Now, some people don't. Some people, it's really hard times, but people still have money. Things are still selling at the high end. People are still buying art. And you know what? I mean, like, when it gets down to it, it's like, what does art give? Art, when you get some art that really moves you, that really creates an emotional connection, that really creates beauty in your home, like, what better service could you be delivering to the world right now than giving them beauty, giving them connection, giving them a wonderful emotion? I mean, art's the answer. Art is the answer. I mean, frankly, this is my art. My art is just turning myself inside out to move you to action, to move you to see a greater future. My job is to see a bigger picture, a bigger future for you than you can see for yourself. And then transfer that vision to you. And then inspire you to have that vision, to create that vision, and then go create that vision. To create a greater life. A life where you have more freedom, more security, and you make a greater impact in the world. That's my art, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm going to be here all week for you, and that's why my entire team is here for you. That's why my community is here for you, to move you to a bigger vision for your future. So I'm Jeff Walker. This was just lesson number 1. We've got 3 more big lessons like this, plus I'm going to be adding in some extra bonuses for you. It's going to be cool. It's going to go until next Friday at midnight, and I'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. I think that's 8 Greenwich Mean Time. And it's going to be great. I'm going to be teaching you about the 3 primary types of launches and which launch is the right one for you. So I'll see you tomorrow.